Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this match analysis. And we've got it downloaded somewhere. I believe it is this one. Yep, okay, so we've got a Legion Commander on Dire versus Radiant. Generally, I like to go ahead and look at the draft order before we get into the match, just so that we can kind of see what we were getting into. Make sure if there's any issues with draft, that we can iron them out. I know from your Dota buff, if I pull it up, that Legion is your most played hero as far as I'm aware. Yep, 419 matches, pretty good win percentage, actually very good win percentage. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So it looks like you picked second phase. So there's the first 4 picks and then the second 4 picks. So if you're anywhere between 5 and 8 inclusive, then you were second phase. You were going to have it looks like a 5 DP and a 4 sniper. So pretty weird support duo, but sometimes that's life. And then the enemy team opened with Lina and Earth Spirit. So you're probably assuming that it's a carry Lina, given the meta, and that it's going to be a 4 Earth Spirit. So you don't really know your matchup in terms of supports, and you pick Legion. I would say Legion is okay versus Lina. The lane's kind of trash, but the game should be pretty good. You can usually kill her because she does very high damage, very high attack speed, both of which are good for you as a Legion who benefits from heroes with high attack speed and high damage with your Blade Mill dual combo. Okay, so let's hop into the match. Generally, the way that I do this is I watch the game, the laning phase, and then I watch the laning phase a bit slower, and then I go through the rest of the game. Sorry, audio's a bit loud. So I actually went over this game in preparation for it on stream earlier. If you don't follow me on Twitch, you can. It's my name, SweetBaboo _. And we went over this, and a couple people were watching and giving some additional feedback. But these are we're going to go over the main points that I noticed and anything that was brought up on stream. So the first thing is your item build is a bit strange. So I really like that you get a stick versus PA and eventually the Ricky, who you're probably certain is the 5 at this point. If not, it's Snapfire and stick is good versus either of those heroes, but it ends up being the Ricky. So the stick is really good. The salve is a complete waste of gold and space. Anything like a salve, you can just bring out on your courier instantly. Generally, in higher brackets, you're going to see people move their couriers out. Looks like neither. Okay, I don't know why Radiant's couriers are invisible. That's weird. None of you guys moved your couriers out. And so that's a little bit questionable. You can kind of put your courier here and just send out your salve off of the rune gold if you feel like you're going to need it. So immediately, your starting items could be changed. This is something that you can script. What I mean by script, because I'm going to talk about scripting things later, is anything that you can plan out in advance that doesn't change from game to game. So what you can't plan out is, for example, the hero picks on the enemy team, but you can always plan your items in advance. And so what I would have done this game is I would have gone the very popular full wand triple branch item. So you end up with quite a bit of stats, and you've got the full wand, which you'll eventually pick up later, and then you'll fly out the tangos and a quelling blade from the rune gold. So generally you'll fly out the tangos instantly, and then on the second courier you'll send out your quelling. You can definitely get away with this because the stats that you'll get is pretty substantial. So you'll actually have an additional 3 damage. So you'll have 67 damage instead of 64, and that makes up for 3 of the 8 damage that you get from Quelling Blade, but of course you get the health, armor, attack speed, that from the stats as well. Okay, you start with passive. I think that's a mistake. You definitely, in any kind of spam lane where you're starting with a stick, want to start with some ability that costs mana. So if sustain is your issue, then you should get Press the Attack. But since you've got 3 tangos and a healing salve, sustain clearly isn't your issue because you've got plenty of regen in your inventory. And so you should start with your first ability and use it to secure the range creeps, since neither of you or Sniper don't have an innate way of doing that other than your spell. And so you're going to have to secure them with spells. Okay. The second thing that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to bring it up now, even though we haven't seen it too much, is your inefficient trades versus Ricky. So they are inefficient in the sense that you end up losing more than he does, not necessarily in HP. So generally when you think about efficient trading, for example, as a mid laner, right, you'll think about efficient trading. Gosh, these pillars are so ridiculous. You'll think about efficient trading as HP. So if Snapfire hits the Tinker and Tinker hits the Snapfire, and Tinker loses 200 health and Snapfire loses 100 health, you say that's an efficient trade for Tinker because he lost less than the opponent, right? Whereas in your case, these trades that you have versus Ricky, so if we back up here and look at it, you're going to end up missing 3 of the 4 CS as a result of that. You know, that one you wouldn't have missed. It just got choked, and that's okay. Sometimes you just miss CS. And then the other issue that happens is it kind of baits your Sniper into trading inefficiently as well. And frankly, you don't really care if Sniper and Ricky just F off, and it's just you versus PA. I'm sure from the amount of experience you have with Legion Commander, you already know that you're going to win a 1v1 versus PA in the lane. So it's like, let your Sniper die, let the Ricky do whatever. If you can like throw a spell or walk over and hit him and not miss anything, then it's great. And I would say for a general rule, as a core in a side lane, I would recommend that unless you can do 300 damage or more to the enemy hero, it's not worth missing a single CS. And that seems pretty steep, but I actually did quite a bit of the math today on how much gold you get per CS, how much experience you get per CS, how much regen like tangos or a salve costs, and anything above 250 is starting to become efficient, and so a pretty easy rule of thumb is just 300. So if you're going to do less than 300 damage, then it's not worth missing CS for. Now, if you're not going to miss any CS, then it's great. You know, going for absolutely like. Okay, the second thing that I want to bring up is assuming that you had gone the items that I recommended before, which was the full wand plus 3 iron branches. The next thing that you want to get once you've gotten the Quelling Blade, if you want it, and your tangos if you need them, is a Wraith Band. Wraith Band is just super meta right now. The armor on it is absurd, especially when you get past the 25-minute mark. This item just becomes extremely efficient in general. 6 attack speed, 2 armor, 5 agility. Remember, the agility also gives you armor. You get the strength and intelligence from it, which is, you know, kind of a token benefit of it. But these Wraith Bands are really, really popular versus any kind of physical damage in the lane. And so I would recommend that if you play this exactly, and again, LC versus, you know, PA, LC versus something physical, and Ricky, that you start with the wand if they press spells, and then you get the Wraith Band. Okay. Speaking of pressing spells, if we look at your spell usage here, speed up, see when you press your first ability. Okay, so you pressed your first ability at 1 minute and 42 seconds. You have 1.2 mana regen, so I'm going to bring up the calculator here. Real quick. So 60 plus 42 is 102 seconds times how much mana regen do you have again? 1.2. Yeah, that's easy to do that in my head. Oh, crap. I'm in freaking programming mode. Okay. 102 seconds times 1.2 mana regen is 122.4 mana. Your Q costs 100, and so you can see that if you had started with your Q and used it somewhat towards the beginning of the laning phase, now remember there's a whole minute before that where you could cast runes and press spells too, but effectively you've wasted an entire Q's worth of damage and mana regen, which is why you really, really, really don't want to get this passive unless you're absolutely forced to. And if you are, you should get press attack. I don't think there's any lane. I can't personally think of a situation where I would ever want Moment of Courage over the other two. So I think if you get passive level one in any situation, you're incorrect. Um, I know you have a lot of Legion games, and sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes that can get you stuck in a flow that's old. So it's possible that this used to be meta, and you kind of stuck onto that, but it's not what I would do unless there's pros doing it in the major and they're doing it for some reason that I'm not aware of. The literal last time I ever saw this was when it was bugged and did double damage on the counter attack, but I think they fixed that. Anyway, in general, it's obvious to me that you have quite a bit of experience on Legion in terms of like knowing the limits of the hero. So you're really, really good at taking efficient HP trades versus Ricky versus PA. You know when to hit them, when not to hit them, and you're good at using this passive. So I understand why you gravitate towards it. What I don't like is how many free CS you miss. Um, like, if I'm being honest, your sniper is completely useless XP leech, which kind of sucks. But even so, you're not getting pressured like at all, and you just end up like PA should not be top of the CS, and you should not be below the top of the CS. I'd like to see you have 30 plus CS at this point easily, and PA have half as many. You've got a damage advantage on her. Like, use that. If you get the Wraith Band, like I recommend, you'll have even more damage. And you'll be much stronger. Good aggression, getting them on a tower. I really like that. Let me switch back to my notes real quick. Okay, covered that. Using your courier to bring your items. So I'm not always going to be there to tell you what items you should buy, but some general practice stuff is like you've had this chainmail for what, 30 seconds or something. Like your courier could have delivered it to you already, and so unless you're like waiting for sort of like sneak attack, surprise attack thing, just bring it. Especially in the off lane, your courier gets there pretty quick. It's better for you to have the armor now and the phase boots a couple seconds later than it is to just not have it that whole time. Nice little gank by Tinker. One of the best things you can do as Tinker player is these kind of random side lane ganks. Snap does a lot of damage, unfortunately. Okay, we're gonna get back. Use your Q during the fountain buff, that's good. Again, it's like, if you've got items, just bring them to yourself. Like your pacing on this, like your decision making here is completely correct. You apply some pressure when it's happening. The course of the fight changes. Snapfire shows up, ults on the ground. You walk away, let your support die, and you go and kind of farm your way backwards to safe farm until it calms down a little bit. Obviously, once you're here, you're going to commit to the stack. Makes sense. Want to make sure that you don't lose too much of this wave. So these waves are extremely valuable. The only time that you ever want to prefer jungle camps over the wave is if you're not safe or if you're a flash farmer. And Legion is not a flash farmer. You just don't like have some innate cleave ability like Sven or something to take some big stack. And so you really, really, really need to maximize your time in the lane on any hero like this. So I'm not entirely sure when this happened or why, and I want to double check before I bring it up. but you chose not to skill ult. Yeah, that's a really weird bug. I honestly, I don't know if it was a misclick or if this was something intentional that you did. If you did this intentionally, I really don't understand why you would choose Moment of Courage over your ult, or choose Moment of Courage over Press the Attack if you're just farming. I don't completely understand it. So if you have like some feedback for me on why you did that, I'd like to hear your opinion. But unless there's some crazy thing that I'm completely unaware of, I cannot imagine why you would get dual, um, for a multitude of reasons, and not necessarily about the damage. Like I don't care that much about you getting dual damage, but I do care about you like being able to lock down someone and kill them for your team. You know. Anyway, um, you opt to go for the blade mail first. I think that's completely viable. It's kind of a farm game. Nice little dual pickup. Your farming pattern here is very good. Only thing is maybe catch that wave. So after, like, as you're hitting this, you should be walking down. That way you can cue this wave or aggro it some way and pull it with you. I don't know if you felt threatened. I don't think you should. And so you just kind of like randomly lose this wave, randomly don't take this camp. And then you end up going mid, so it kind of works out. But I think that you got lucky that there was a fight there. That's not like just because it worked out that there was a hero here for you to get a free duel on doesn't mean that the decision that you made leading up to that was sound. So like I said, just grab this wave, pull it into this camp, farm it. You're pretty safe because you're next to your tower, you're a legion, you know, all that good stuff. And then, yeah, you know, this game worked out, you got a duel, but that won't happen most times. Anyway, but moving on with the decisions that we have made. You were mid, so you come to pressure the tower. This is absolutely correct. Would have been upset if had you not. And I don't like this sticking around. I think there's too many heroes here. It's obvious that this is kind of like a weird stalemate. Like, they're not going to push into Sniper DP Tinker, and there's not going to be a fight where you can easily get a duel off, unless the enemy really f's up. And so you end up just losing efficiency on the map. So they're farming on 2 cores. Meanwhile, there's 4 of you like posturing mid for nothing. Timing on the TP. Tinker lived. Right. I think it's really nice. I'm a fan of this guy. I feel like other than so you TP top and then there's kind of this like weird awkward farm your way backward stuff. You're kind of forced into this awkwardness because you had a TP to save your Tinker. Like Furion is really like doing. I'm watching the map and Furion's doing some freaking janky shit. I don't know why it took him so long to get there. Why he's not farming it. You get a blink, an instant smoke duel. There's not too much you can do to avoid this. But like right here, you're really hyper focused on like getting a kill. And if you had actually paid attention, you actually see PA right here. And so you're like, you jumped the gun pretty hard. So this duel, even if you get it, is kind of lucky because Ricky actually gets silenced and you don't even see this. So he goes to Cloud and gets silenced, which is the only reason this works out. And I don't even think you guys were aware. You ended up being aware. But you missed a kill in the PA. Is really the big deal. And you just kind of sacked your sniper. It's so unfortunate. He goes up, he sees PA, and then he just dies. He's like, "Where's my Legion?" Um, so yeah, that's unfortunately your bad, but that's right. Okay, let's see here. So for items, okay, so you've got your core items here on Legion. Like I said, I think you should have the Wraith Man on top of all this, but that's okay. Um, and now you kind of have to pick between a couple different paths. So you can become like a killing machine, initiate, save the day, get a million dual damage, try to 1v5 kind of hero. You can become a more traditional like meta offlaner where you buy some utility items like a halberd or even a Guardian Greaves. So there's kind of a couple different paths that you can take. I'm just going to recommend in general in this bracket that you opt for, on Legion specifically, that you opt for like a more carry oriented build. If you're any other offlaner, I'm going to recommend that you go for the like Greaves meta that's happening right now. Heroes that don't normally buy Greaves are buying Greaves right now just because of how good it is. And so it's kind of hard to it's hard for me to recommend that you deviate from that, but I know from how many games of Legion you have and in the bracket you're in that it's just you're just going to have more success in terms of gaining MMR if you go for a more like damage oriented build. Okay, that being said, there are two decision trees, or there's two decisions you can make when you are playing core and you're buying like carry items essentially. So so here you are in some game state, right? Ooh, the state of the game, very cool. And so you can go one route, the other route. And one of these game states is you are winning. The other one, you are losing. Does that make sense? So here's the start of the game. So S for start. And in one path, you're winning, and in the other path, you're losing. And you have item decisions to make. And so what most people think is that the decision and or the game state and tree doesn't look like this, and instead it looks more like this, where the game is a timeline. And at 5 minutes, you're supposed to have this item, and at 10 minutes, you're supposed to have this item. And winning or losing determines where you are on this graph. And so if you're winning, all of your timings are on time, right? And if you're losing, then your item timings are delayed. I don't know why this one is red, but or green, sorry, but whatever. So the red is like your winning state where you're getting your first item at 5 and your second at 10 and your third at 15. And then when you're losing, you're delayed. And so you get your first one at 7.5. And I guess technically, if we were going to be consistent, then you would really get your second item at 15, right? Because that's 7.5 again. Anyway, so a lot of people think that this is the difference between winning and losing when you're getting your items on a core, right? And in reality, it's actually two different paths. And in one path, you're buying items to keep yourself alive. So I'll just do text. right? And so the thought behind this is if you're winning, then if you die, you're going to give a lot of gold and you're going to swing the game. And so imagine if you buy something like, let's say, a Daedalus on Legion Commander right now, and then it turns out that PA gets an item and she just starts killing you, and you just can't live because you have this Daedalus and you don't have any armor, and so you're just dying. And all of a sudden, it went from where you were winning to where now you're losing, right? If you're losing, well, you can't get any worse than losing. So the only thing that you can do is buy items to kill them. So yeah. So the first one is items to keep yourself alive, and then if you're losing, you want to buy items to kill them. And so what you end up doing in this game is kind of a weird choice. Um, I thought about it quite a bit, and you end up going for an MKB if I'm not mistaken. Let me go to graphs, player items. Yeah, so you start to go for an MKB, and the only thing that I can think of is that you're buying this for Ricky um, because of the miss rate. And that's not completely unjustified. Like, maybe you're buying it for Phantom Assassin because she has evasion or something. That seems pretty one-dimensional. Like this, like MKB for PA is only for PA, but if it's for Ricky, then it's for all of them because Ricky can cloud anyone that you duel or whatever, right? And I'm just kind of like not really understanding why you would go for that item when like you could just buy a BKB and duel Lena or something, right? Or if you need to deal with PA, which you shouldn't because you have a Tinker and a Furion, then I don't know. MKB it just isn't the item. It's so hard to like wrap all of the information that I want to portray about that, but it just isn't MKB. So you're either going to go BKB here if you're winning, or you're going to go something more aggressive like a Shadow Blade if you're losing. I don't think MKB is ever the decision. If you need True Strike, go Bloodthorn. The reason you go Bloodthorn over MKB is not because of the cost, because the cost is a disadvantage of the item, but because it's going to help you break Lincolns or something later, right? Just yeah, don't go MKB. That item is unfortunately extremely bad. One of the worst items in the game. Okay, so the game ends pretty quickly due to a disconnect, and so I don't want to go too far into everything that happens, just because we don't need to. So you guys are doing well, they end up DCing, and then you win the game. And so really, just kind of like in summary, just so this isn't much longer, and we're almost at 30 minutes at this point, is in your laning phase, you need to clean up your item build. So script your item build, look at pros, look at what other high MMR players are doing, and just copy paste it. So right now, the best offlane item build in general is full wand, triple branch, and a wraith band. And if you don't need a wand, then you just go wraith band. And then you get your tangos and your quelling blade if needed from the courier. When it comes to trading with enemy heroes, if you're about 300 HP per creep, roughly, is about what you want to aim for. So if you can do 300 damage to the support, then chase them around and hurt them. If you can't, then get the CS instead. And then the last thing that we want to talk about specifically to Legion is don't get your passive level 1, get your Q or your W, depending on what you need. In almost every game, not at almost every game, in every single game, you want to max your overwhelming odds. However, that doesn't mean in every game you will max your overwhelming odds. In some games, you're going to need to press the attack for whatever reason. For example, if you're versus like some ultra freaking cancer, CM plus Monkey King or something, right? Where you can't run away and you can't fight, then you just need your W. Maybe in that lane. In fact, maybe that's too extreme of an example, and that's actually, it would go the other way where you want your Q because you can't lane. Anyway, so but you understand my point, which is if you can max your Q, max it. Otherwise, if you're forced to max press the attack, go ahead and do it. but I would never start with Moment of Courage unless you're forced into cutting wave or jungling or something weird. I think that about wraps up everything I had for you. I hope this was helpful. If you want any coaching in the future, don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully my schedule is a bit lighter now that midterms are over. So I will see you later.